Hello everybody, welcome back. This is your tropical update from May 23rd. We're currently watching a typhoon near Guam, which is United States territory, and that will be impacting the area here shortly. In fact, it's currently beginning to feel the impacts of the worst of this storm. But today's main video is about the changes to the National Hurricane Center products and thus also my products over the next year. As we can see here, the storm surge graphic will become operational. It was experimental since 2020, so effectively for you guys, that means nothing's going to change. I mean, it's the same thing that we've been looking at, just now it's official, I guess. The interactive storm surge map is now expanded to include 2 United States territories like Guam, Puerto Rico, and the United States Virgin Islands. It already includes the East Coast and the Gulf Coast. And this interactive map is able to say which category the storm is, and then you can move it around and kind of see how far inland these storms will impact people daily activity. The other thing is the tropical cyclone formation outlook. The shaded region that usually will say something like 20% chance of formation within 48 hours, 50% chance in the next 5 days. Well, now it's going to say 20% chance of formation in the 48 hours, and let's say 80% chance in the next 7 days. And so now that's going out to 7 days. The outlook only, the cone will still remain a 5-day forecast cone is what we wanted to say. And only the 48-hour and 7-day probabilities will be given for formation, not the 5-day number. Also, it's worth noting that the outlook will now include invest numbers. You're used to me saying invest 90L or invest 93L or something like that. That will now be included in the National Hurricane Center, so you'll know exactly which storm when listening to the news media and as that continues. The watch warning information will also be removed from the forecasted advisory product. It will continue to be used in the public advisory. The reason for this is because right now it's in both places, and that when we don't have it in 2 places, that leads less opportunity for error when updating both when the watches and warnings are updated. Speaking of watches and warnings, there's a couple suggested changes that the Hurricane Center has put forward. One of them is changing how floods are dealt with. That is storm surge, coastal flooding, and lakeshore flooding. They're going to put it all into one product is what they're proposing. And the messaging will still be what it is now. So if there's a storm surge warning somewhere, well, the messaging is going to be a storm surge warning is in effect for this location until this time. It's going to have more detailed location information than it currently has, and it will allow for those storm surge warnings to be issued in polygons like your tornado warnings, which will also allow for weather emergency alert, wireless emergency alert activation. That is on your cell phone when your amber alerts, your tornado warnings, your very destructive severe thunderstorms. Then now storm surge warnings could be added to that as well, which would be, of course, a life-saving information and ability for the Hurricane Center and the weather forecast offices to have. The second change that they are proposing is the changes to tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings. It will now be sent out at the same time as the advisory from the Hurricane Center. It will only focus on the wind threat, and it will include the worst-case scenario. So instead of detailing all the different threats, which you can get the storm surge product in the storm surge warning, and both of them will still be combined in the hurricane local statement. But in the tropical storm warning itself, or whatever it is, I guess the example I here uses a hurricane warning. So in the hurricane warning itself, it's going to say winds 58 to 73 miles an hour, and also there is a worst case scenario chance of major hurricane force winds to 110 miles an hour. What it used to say was, well, we're going to have winds 55 to 75 miles an hour. We might have gusts 90 miles an hour, blah, 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 blah. And then later on, well, there's also a 10% chance of major hurricane force winds to 110 miles an hour or greater. And so they're going to combine that and put that up further to really emphasize that this is the worst case scenario threat. So how is that going to look in terms of changes here at INFOWeather? This is what it looked like in 2022. You see a lot of blank space that gets filled up when we have a busy storm, though. off to the side there with the discussion. I'll give an example of that here in a second. And what I'm doing is I'm colorizing the impact map with the 4 different threats that the impact map uses. I'll show the impact map here in a few more slides. And basically, it's a 7-category system ranging from virtually no impact to very significant extreme impacts regardless. So, you have the Cat 1 hurricane, you're probably sitting around the level 3 to 4 range. You have a Cat 4 or 5 hurricane, maybe even a Cat 3, you might be maxed out all the way at the 7. You have a tropical storm, a weak tropical storm, tropical depression, you're probably in the level 1 or 2 range where you have the blue and the green. So it retains the text that we had in the previous version, but it expands it so that it's color-based. So you can look at it and see how far the bar is filled in, things like that, and see which color it is to see how impactful it is. I'll still have a little discussion section. We'll also make a couple other minor changes. The chance of formation is now more prominent. It's up on the top as well as continuing to be at the bottom of the screen. Of course, we're changing that to 7 days instead of 5 days because that's what the Hurricane Center is changing. And the area title will now match the National Hurricane Center Outlook. So now it won't say area of interest. It'll say off the coast of Africa, which, again, this helps for ease of use between users that are using both different products. Here's an example with a tropical storm. Again, very similar here. In this one, you could really see the flooding, storm surge, wind, tornado impacts in their text. And again, the text is great and all, but it's a heck of a lot better when you put it in something like a graphic. And so that was my idea here with these bars, again, going up to level 3 in the flooding, storm surge, and wind categories. Virtually no tornado threat, so it's down to 0. And then in the discussion section, we can say, hey, in Jamaica might experience something as well. The areas around Belize might expect something, but in Belize, this is what we're expecting because this is the worst thing to happen. The only other change for an active tropical cyclone will be the NHC advisory header being put at the top rather than whatever statement I come up with. It might be an abbreviated NHC advisory header because sometimes those can get fairly long, but that is the general point. We'll still have this slide like you're used to where we have the storm slide. I might update how that looks though. Same thing with the tropical update, the opening satellite image, that'll look the same. And then the impact map, that'll also continue to look very similar to how it does now. It's worth noting though, again, those are the 4 categories: minimal, low, slight, moderate, high, significant, and extreme. And again, those have associated risks with them, scaling for the 4 different qualities. So, it might be due to storm surge or wind or rainfall or tornadoes, but that would all be broken down for that most impactful location within the storm itself when we get to that. Of course, the spaghetti models will continue to have like normal, no major changes expected there. So thank you guys for watching. Get ready for the hurricane season. It's only a few more days away, a little less than a week to prepare. That's it for now. Chris Hicks and InfoWeather Media.